A widespread rain has played out finally for most of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, down into New Jersey, and there were exceptions. There were a few exceptions, and we'll talk about that. Tropical Storm Earl is on the verge of becoming a hurricane if the latest reconnaissance aircraft reports are to be believed, and we'll talk about that. And Hurricane K out in the Pacific. It's going to straddle up the west coast of the Baja Peninsula, and it could bring some rains to Southern California late this week and into this weekend. So we have a lot to talk about tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, serving the entire New York, New Jersey tri-state area with the lowest prices anywhere. And now that it's, we still got hurricane season to worry about, so just make sure that if you got a generator that it's working, or if you got a pump to pump out the water, that's working. And of course, now that it's rained, you might want to think about making your yard look good again with some mulch or topsoil or whatever it is you need. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com, Joe.
Yes. All right, so how much rain did you get over there in the Valley of Hudson?
According to my wonderful and semi-expensive Davis weather station, the second one that I purchased, actually, because the first one kind of crapped out on me a couple of years ago. But according to my Davis weather station, I received 0.00.
Is your tipping bucket still not working?
You know, the tipping spoon, there's apparently some kind of a malfunction with that. But you know, Joe, what I have to get out a ladder, like a 12-foot ladder, position it on a wall, semi-precariously climb the ladder, reach up, try to unscrew the station, bring it back down, open it up. You know, I sure as heck wasn't doing that today.
No, not at all. Looking at let's address Long Island, because two areas we should address. Let's address Long Island, which compared to what everybody else got really next to nothing. There were some 1-inch amounts in northern Nassau and northwestern Suffolk County. Maybe a few spots got a little bit more. But a lot of Long Island got less than a half an inch of rain. Now, you might make up with some of that with a little bit of ocean effect going on tonight. So we'll see what the final totals are, but they're not going to come anywhere close to what they've had in other areas. And then, Joe, 25 miles north of Long Island on the other side in Connecticut, just inland of the coast, just north of I-9, just north of I-95, an east-west band of 6 to 8 inch rainfall that occurred out of this. I noticed most of the rainfall amounts in New Jersey were in the order of 1 to 3. Two places got 2 to 4. Hudson Valley that I saw, didn't get the final totals, but I saw 1 to 3, 2 to 4. Eastern Pennsylvania did very well with this too. So for the most part, it worked out with those exceptions. There were even a few exceptions in New Jersey, just to be clear, but at least everybody got something, which is a good thing. And now we have to sort of sit back and wait to get this slowly out of the way. Looks like I think maybe by Thursday we'll start to see some genuine improvement. And then the weather looks, I think, pretty decent going through the weekend, but then we might have some more rain early next week.
Yep, it looks like, and you know what? It all through this summer, we've been talking about the severe drought conditions, especially in portions of Connecticut and Rhode Island. And Renata especially has always said, nature will eventually balance the checkbook. And for every day that we don't see any rain, it's going to be one more day or one more interval of potentially heavy rain that does eventually come. And it came. It didn't practically. The deficit, I believe, in parts of the area I just mentioned, southern New England, was something like 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 inches. And they almost received all of that in one sitting in the last 24 to 48 hours. So as bad and as dry and everything. And I tell the people out west, Joe, in California, I saw reports tonight of wildfires across Southern California and how terrible it is and everything else. And I said to myself, I would be willing, if there was a place where I could put a bet down, I would be willing to put a hefty amount of money down somewhere to bet that in less than 6 months, those same areas that are, on fire right now, those same areas that have been plagued with dry weather almost since the start of the summer, those same areas we're going to be seeing reports in January and February of people's homes are going to be underwater. And that's the way it always is. California, in my opinion, is the most volatile state of the union when it comes to weather. You can go from one end of the extreme weather-wise to the other, and while they're suffering now with heat and dryness and wildfires and everything else, guarantee you that we'll be seeing in January or February from those big Pacific storms that we'll be seeing reports about people whose homes have been flooded out and roadways that have been flooded out, and patrolmen saying there's much too much water out here, and we tell people don't go and don't come. It's going to be just the other direction, because again, as I just noted, nature balances the checkbook in its own weird way. We saw it happen here in southern New England today. We will see it happen out west, I predict, in a very few months.
Well, just think back. I think it was whenever that big El Nino year that we had, was it 15, 16? California, as I at that point, was going through a multi-year drought, and they basically got 5 years worth of rain in one winter rainy season when the pattern set up. So they went from having nothing to just I can remember videos of huge floods all over the place. Yeah, no, you're right. It'll just eventually balance out at some point. It always has. Okay, so unless something has truly monumentally changed, I suspect that it'll do it. It'll just do it perhaps in a very obvious and maybe a very, if you want to use the word violent, it might do it in a very violent way. So we'll see how things evolve as we go over the next couple of months. But I'm totally lined up with you. Eventually they'll get whatever it is they'll get. And of course, I was looking at the guidance today, and particularly the GFS, which wants to bring some of this tropical moisture up from Hurricane K on the Pacific side, and it gets it in there into Southern California. Actually brings the low further north, almost to just off San Diego, before it falls apart. So Anthony Orr sent me a message today about there have been so few storms that have impacted California in terms of tropical storms. They never really have gotten like a direct hit from a tropical storm or a hurricane. They've always gotten remnants. But there was, I believe it was 1858. There was a hurricane that went to San Diego. So you got to go way back in the calendar. The 1939 hurricane that brought wind and rain up to LA. So this at least might bring up some tropical moisture there.
These are the things that work against you. The biggest thing that works against you in situations like this is time. That events such as what you just described are physically possible. You can get tropical cyclones up into Southern California, but they happen in so infrequent times that when they finally do happen, they're like, I didn't. The frequency is so great that you don't really realize it until it actually happens. Then you have to go wading back into the record books to find the last time it did happen. So the same thing with what happened in Hurricane Sandy, I might add, here in the Northeast. I actually saw papers written well before Sandy ever occurred, talking about how New York could be flooded out, devastating floods, and you needed the storm particularly a tropical system, to take the same kind of path that Sandy did, the same unorthodox path that Sandy did, not coming up directly from the coast, but coming in from the east. And that's exactly what happened with Sandy. It can happen. It does happen, but it happens so infrequently that you don't realize or don't believe that it is possible.
I've always referred to those as generational events.
Correct.
Every 25 or 35 years, or even every 50 years, you get one of these, types of storms that does the unusual. And when that happens, you feel very vulnerable because you think that, oh my God, it's going to happen again and again and again. And here we are 10 years later now. Sandy's 10th anniversary is coming up, and we haven't seen anything. So thankfully, these are generational events. The chair and Scott Briller hitting Super Chat tonight, and tonight's Briller Jeopardy, if Joe holds on, we'll talk about tropical systems and how many tropical systems that have been retired, the number of tropical. Somebody asked us the other day, how many tropical systems have been retired in the Atlantic Basin? So we will get the answer to that. But let's go to what's going on now locally. So we'll talk about that. We'll go to Earl, which I think may be upgraded to a hurricane on the next advisory. If not, they're going to bring it up to at least to 70 miles an hour. So, but looking from what I saw on the obs, it's probably a hurricane, a minimal hurricane. And here's the current radar of what's left of the rainfall. Let me just make myself disappear for a moment. There we go. And you can see there's still some rain. It's gotten more patchy, Joe. There's some rain north and west of you that's sitting up in Orange County and back up into the Catskills. It's mostly light stuff. Also, some patches in Connecticut. There's a big patch over Long Island at the moment. Sometimes when you get these waves that move off the New Jersey coast, like this one did, you get some rain that backs westward, especially if you have a good onshore flow. The rain backs westward, and you wind up raining for a good part of another 12 hours or so before the system finally pulls away. Sometimes if you have an upper low, it could go longer than that. We don't have an upper low this time, but the trough at least is still hanging around. But all that steady, heavy rain is over with. And I go back to what I've been saying for days now with respect to Tropical Storm Earl, Joe. I think the fact that it was so slow, still where it is, sort of creeping northward, it strengthened the ridge along the East Coast just enough. I woke up this morning at 6 o'clock and I looked at the radar, and it still was not raining on Long Island and in southern New Jersey. I mean, I kind of went to bed with that line at about New York City, and it just sat there all night. It took all night. And of course, the heavy rain bands then set up just north and west of there. And, southern New England, southeastern New England, they made up their drought deficit, as you pointed out.
Yes, in quick order, in very, very quick order. It's amazing how much has fallen. I mean, you and I, neither one of us, I think, even suspected that there could be places picking up, maybe 5 or 6 or even more inches than that. We said we would talk about 1 to 3, 2 to 4, but some places just went absolutely hog wild with the burst of precipitation.
Yep, and that's always the danger in a setup like this, because the models don't always pick the right spot for the max precip to fall, and that leaves you in a bit of a quandary. So it's just the nature of the beast. There's always what we call the screw zone in the wintertime. The snow area, the areas that wind up getting far less snow than everybody else, and then the ones that get into get the bonus. Meanwhile, we've got some scattered showers and thunderstorms in the southeast, and also through the Tennessee Valley and into the Gulf states. Nothing really that's causing any problems. Some scattered storms in Florida, mostly along I-4. We've got some downpours in South Texas, down to the Mexico border and on the Mexico side. On the Mexico side as well. Some scattered showers in parts of Nevada, and in California there, near the Nevada state line near Reno, southwest Utah, southwest Colorado, northern Arizona, and pushing up into parts of Oregon, mostly on the light side, nothing that's causing any problems, and most of it, again, is widely scattered. So the bulk of that rain is over with here in the east, and that's a good thing. And you could see Earl on the lower right of your satellite loop, burst of convection that occurred late this afternoon and this evening, and you see how it's coiling around what's probably the center. Actually, with what I saw on the plane, it was pretty impressive on the west side in terms of the wind field now. Clouds are continuing to stream in the northeast as we deal with this weather system to get out of the way. And again, the outflow from Earl is building the ridge, the dry air that's between Earl and then the moisture that you see off the east coast. And that helped to set up where that heavy rain band is. And meanwhile, a ton of moisture. You can't see it on this shot, but I'll switch over to one of the hurricane shots in a moment. We could take a look at Hurricane K. But here's the latest, the recut in there, Joe. The first flight in about an hour ago had a fix of 988 millibars, and that's a significant drop from earlier today. And also, in terms of the winds that have been measured, there are a number. This is all on the west side. That's why I think they're probably going to upgrade this to a hurricane. There are a number of wind barbs indicating winds of 64 to 83 knots on the west side, as well as some on the east side. So when you have strong winds like that on the west and northwest side, that's usually a good indicator that this system is undergoing some strengthening. And in fact, if we look at the drop zone, the recon aircraft observations, you'll notice in the blue is the flight level winds, and the red is the pressure. So the red line at 2144, which would be at 5:44 p.m. Eastern time, was down below 985, and the winds were up at 70 knots. You see there's a couple of 70-knot wind peaks here. There's one right here. There's a double peak here. There's an 80-knot wind peak that was measured at 4 minutes after 7, and then another peak on the wind at about 70 knots at 7:24 Eastern time, and the pressure there on the red line just under 985 millibars. So at any moment, the folks from NHC will be, oh no, not any moment. It's 7:51. I'm sorry. I thought my eyes deceived me. Couldn't be 7:31. We haven't been on for just a few minutes. They have not updated the advisory. They have updated the tropical weather outlook. Have they? Yes. So there's another wave off west of the Cabo Verde Islands, 50% chance. I think this will probably develop into a tropical depression or a tropical storm. Eventually, it'll get sheared apart by Earl, but I think it will develop. And then there's another tropical wave behind it that hasn't moved off yet, which they have a 20% chance going down in about 5 days. But here's the wide tropical look, and pretty impressive on the visible, Joe. I think if it's not a hurricane, it's right on the doorstep.
I would agree. It has almost you look at it, especially on the infrared, and it does have that classic look to it, and you can even see north of the center the outflow, the classic outflow from the storm. So
the feathering.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The feathering of the cirrus.
The feathering, correct. So I would agree. If it's not a hurricane already, it's going to become one literally any minute now.
Yeah, and when we say the feathering, if you look on the northwest side, you could see the sort of these thin line of clouds, the cirrus. They almost look like feathers, and that's usually when a storm is undergoing strengthening. You see that feathering that happens. Meanwhile, you also see here's that disorganized tropical wave that we mentioned, that the Hurricane Center right in there. There's that one, and then there's the wave behind it, and then there's another one behind that. So the Atlantic side, at least, there is traffic that is going to be coming out of there. Now let's go to the Pacific side and take a look at the Eastern Pacific satellite loop so we can take a look at Hurricane K. And there it is. The system has continued to organize here. We'll give it loop a couple of seconds here to load up a few extra frames, but also seeing it's also kind of tilted at an angle. I just always love these Pacific shots because it looks like half the ocean is involved in all of this with regards to the moisture feed. But there's a definite eye in there. Kind of filled in a little bit toward the end of the visible, the last frame, but there was definitely an eye. And moving on a northwest course, you see where the Baja Peninsula is with relation to this. So it's got a ways to go yet in terms of what's going to come of it. And let me just take a look at something here really quick. Hold on a second. Okay, so let's go to current storms. I'll give another minute or two for Earl. Let's go to K on the latest advisory for K, which was issued at 3 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. 18.8 north, 111.0 west, with top winds of 85 miles per hour. We have tropical storm warnings up now for the lower portion of the Baja Peninsula. Watches have been extended further north, including a hurricane watch for that part of the peninsula that jets out. And in fact, if you look at their forecast track, they take the center, it almost touches that point. And it makes it up to about 30 degrees north before it starts to make that sharp left-hand turn. If it gets up to 30 degrees north before it makes the turn, Joe, I think that's far enough north that you will probably see some moisture get into Southern California from this.
Yeah, that certainly should be close enough. It's kind of like the backward version of our benchmark, if you will, 30 and 120.
Yes.
It's that, you get it that far north and that close to the coastline of 120 west. That should be, yeah, I agree with you. That should be close enough to at least bring some showers or some rain in to extreme southern sections of California.
The hurricane tracking models as a whole are generally to the left of where the Hurricane Center is tracking. The Hurricane Center is on the right side of this envelope of weather models. I like that word, envelope. And if we look at the ensembles. And if you look at the GFS ensembles, Mrs. Ensembles says that actually brings the mean position, brings it right over that point that jets out, and gets pretty far north there on the ensemble mean. Look at that; it gets pretty far north. So yeah, and there's some tracks in there that are even inland that move up into Southern California. So something I'm sure that those folks out there will have their eyes on, because again, the big deal would be the rainfall that would come of it.
And by the way, that part of Baja California that sticks out, there's actually, it doesn't show up, I think, on the maps, but there's actually a tiny little island that is just off the western tip of Baja, called Isla Navidad, and that may very well be in the path of Faye before Kay before she turns off to the left.
Yes, and one of the things we talked about last night, and yes, that is light blue in southwestern Canada for you snow lovers. I know you're not going to miss that. But all of this, the big key to this is this shortwave trough. Let me roll it back. So here we go. This is going to be tomorrow morning, and you have K. Let me pen here. So here's K. I'll make it with a K, and then here's Earl. By the way, on the Atlantic side, that's this thing over here, and this is K. You also have a big ridge, very strong ridge there in Utah, and on the northwest corner, you just barely begin to see the beginnings of what will be a rather strong shortwave that moves into western Canada and then drops down into Montana and Wyoming. Joe, this trough is much stronger than what was shown yesterday, and it really erodes the ridge, which I think is the reason why the GFS, anyway, brings this thing as far north as it does. I mean, look at that upper feature gets pretty close to San Diego there by Friday night, and then the trough pulls out, and the ridge starts to build again, and that's when it turns to the left. And I'm wondering if that upper trough is a little slower and just as deep, that might allow this to go maybe even a little bit further north than what the models are indicating at this moment.
Well, there's certain things that sometimes the models cannot take into account, like momentum. Like they may say that a system is going to continue going north and then turn after a certain amount of time. But meanwhile, the actual case is that the system continues to turn north, continues to go north even after the models have suggested it was going to make the turn, surely because of momentum. The fact that the system hasn't had a chance to really completely slow down yet or make that turn. So it waits a little while beyond the actual projection of the what the guidance models are suggesting. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if K came or went a little bit further north than what the current predictions are suggesting, and that may very well be what the men, or the not the men, the human factor is in mixing in with the machines in coming up with the official track from the hurricane center. So maybe that's why the official track is maybe a little bit more to the north and east, as opposed to what you saw from the spaghetti models, which would turn the storm a little bit more to the left a little quicker.
Agreed. Okay, I'm going to. We are getting the circle of doom. I realize that. I'm watching. I noticed it this first time in several days that we've gotten the circle of doom. So let's hope it goes away. Okay, that's it's buffer. You may be experiencing some buffering. There's some internet issues here going on tonight. I'm not sure why, but I noticed that I could, except for Bloomberg Business News, I couldn't get any other channel on my TV a little while ago. So on that particular note, let me see if I could just cut this out a little lower, take out a few things. Maybe that'll help speed it up a little bit. No success yet. I'm sorry, folks. My apologies on that. Okay, let me just really quick. Let's check.
And David Schwartz on the chat board hitting super chats and announcing we have Hurricane Earl as of 8 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time.
Yes.
80-mile-per-hour winds.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Totally makes sense off of what the the recon was showing, and in fact, let's bring up the forecast here. Hold on a second, Joe. Bring up the cone of shame. Oh, okay. My signal looks like it's gotten better, so that's a plus. Let's see.
The cone of silence, Chief.
The cone of silence. The cone of shame. All right, let me get rid of that. Let's go to this, make it a little bigger. And there you can see the forecast track of Earl, forecast to become a major hurricane sometime late Thursday, making that turn to the right. They do have tropical storm watches up for Bermuda because because it's been moving so slowly, northwest at 5, 24.1, 65.8 with this was at the 5 p.m. Advisory. So as that the map hasn't been updated yet, but the track is going to be, just east of Bermuda. It looks like by about maybe 60 to 90 miles or so. So they've got the tropical storm watches up. So there'll be advisories coming up every 3 hours or so. Let me just bring up the latest on the public advisory so we can get the correct position 20, 24.4 north, 65.8 west at 8 o'clock. Top winds 80 miles an hour, moving north or 350 degrees at 6 miles an hour, and the pressure 985 millibars or 29.09 inches. And the spaghetti plots are all pretty much in agreement here with a sort of a right turn east of Bermuda. The global models are to the left. Seems like that's the new thing now. The global models seem to always be now to the left side of the envelope on the tropical systems in the Atlantic, and they're on the right side of the ones in the Pacific. So go figure.
Yep.
Go figure.
Technology.
Yeah, exactly. Now I want to go back to that upper air that I had up. Okay, so that we can at least focus our attention on what's going to be going on here in the eastern part of the U.S. And of course, we've got this trough that by Thursday is finally, at least the top of that trough is going to be moving offshore, and that's what actually picks Earl up and kicks it on out to the northeast. You see it just going off the frame here, close to Bermuda and then out. The bottom part of that trough cuts off over Louisiana. So I'm thinking maybe late this week there'll probably be an increase in shower and thunderstorm activity in the south, parts of the southeast, the deep south, the Gulf states, and back into Texas. And then you could see where K is, the upper feature, that's K. But meanwhile, we've got a little upper high that builds in for Friday and for Saturday, and I think it holds on for Sunday. Timothy Veltman, Joe, sent me a message today. I thought was he made a very good point. He says we may be at a point now where that deep summer type weather, where it's in the 80s to low 90s every single day. I think we're done. I think we're done with that. I think from here on, it's a matter of whether we get the odd day here and there that gets very warm. But I think we're going to be seeing more reasonable temperatures going forward in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. And then, of course, beyond that, obviously, as we get deeper into September and eventually into October.
Yep. But as we have seen, you could still have 90s even into October. In fact, I think a few years ago we had something like 94 degrees on October 2nd. Not to say that's going to happen this year, but just to let you know that, statistically speaking. Yes, exactly.
Or a plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage.
A golden carriage.
Impossible. All right, so that ridge gives way to another trough early next week that takes its time. Doesn't even get through the east until about Wednesday or Thursday. And then that goes out. There's another trough behind that, and that goes out. Then we get into a bit of a ridge, and then another trough that follows. Very progressive west to east pattern here, developing going as we move into the middle part of September.
I was just looking here to see if I could find the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14 day outlook from Climate Prediction Center. Maybe you can put that up there if I can finally get to it.
Okay.
So give me another minute or two to get there. Otherwise, what else can we talk about?
I'll just real quick. Let's run through the GFS for the rest of tonight, and let me roll it back. I was a week ahead. So there's your rain. Now again, this low is going to linger a bit. So does the onshore flow. We still have a few isobars there, bringing in the east wind. So I think there's probably going to be clouds and some lingering patches of light rain into tomorrow. Then it finally should disappear as we go into Thursday. Friday looks good. The high to the northeast is sort of building back southward, so that's going to keep things reasonable around here in terms of temperatures and humidity levels. Earl's going to help that cause along, I think, Joe, as you said yesterday, and bringing some drier air down through New England and into the mid-Atlantic states. Saturday looks good, and here comes the next front, which initially most of the energy's in the Great Lakes, and by Sunday evening, there's some showers and storms in western and central PA, down in through western Virginia, central North Carolina, and then back through the lakes. That lead area doesn't really do very much, kind of weakens as it moves eastward on Monday. And then on Tuesday, there's a stronger cold front that comes through with some showers and thunderstorms, and then that moves out, and then on it goes. It doesn't look to me and then a stronger cold front in terms of what's behind it. There's a nice 1025 high for the weekend of the 8th, the 17th and 18th, Joe. Nice big high, probably some nice nice low dew points and some nice coolish temperatures perhaps coming in for that mid-September weekend down the road. With that progressive pattern that's shaping up.
Well, I have on if you open my screen, you can see the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. I find it rather unusual. First of all, for the Northeast, let's see, we're talking about 1, 2, 3. So we're going to over 50 to 60% probability for next week that temperatures each day are going to be above normal. That's one thing to talk about. But take a look at what's happening, according to Climate Prediction Center, in the middle of the country. They have not just below, but 1, 2, 3 deviations, 50 to 60% below normal. And when you consider that his 50, 60% below normal and his 50, 60% above normal temperature probability, that's kind of squeezed into a rather short area of real estate. And so if you're, Joe, that also includes your area where you are. So they're talking about below normal temperatures for you. Are you going to be the first one this year to hit, 40 degrees before I do, or?
Well, I might. I did it. I'll take that bet. I'll hit 40 before you do.
And meanwhile, out in the western and central U.S., it's just about the same above normal probability as what we have in the Northeast. Although here the probabilities are pretty well packed, rather tightly. I don't want to say gradient, but you could see that the probability for above normal temperatures is a lot tighter here as opposed to out west, where it's maybe more open or more not quite so tight or compressed. And then again, right here in the middle, you have that pretty cool zone, which they have for the Midwest and for the Tennessee and Mississippi Valley. You're wondering what it's going to be like in terms of the precipitation for that time frame. Now look at this. We're going to be not only above normal, but they also have above normal precipitation. So, next week, if this is right, according to the Climate Prediction Center, we're going to have mild temperature. Dare I say muggy? I don't know, muggy or a bit humid, because they do again have above normal precip here, below normal temperatures and below normal precipitation right here in the nation's midsection. And then look at this broad area out here out west for above normal precip. I don't think this has anything to do with the monsoons. This may very well have something to do with the upper level systems, maybe a closed system or a rather significant shortwave over the western states for next week, which may generate above normal precip. But it's also going to be, again, above normal in terms of precipitation. So we may be talking about quite a bit of convection, maybe showery and thundery conditions out here in the west. And then just a quick look out for the 8 to 14 day outlook. See much of the country, including our own, above normal, even in the places where it was below normal for much of last week. That has warmed up quickly. And as far as precip is concerned, on the 8 to 14 day outlook, now it's below normal, near or below normal for a wide swath of the country, except again out here out west, they continue with the thinking that we're going to be seeing above normal precip in places like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah. And so that would be for the 14th through the 20th of September. We're leading now into the final days on this 8 to 14 day precip outlook, the final days officially of astronomical summer. And then, as you know, on the 22nd, we transfer to the autumn season, although meteorologically, autumn has already begun. It began on the 1st of September this year.
That's correct.
Tell that, however, to the people tell that to the people out west where it's in the lower hundreds with dry conditions and no precipitation. Some autumn so far.
Yeah, well, it doesn't always work out evenly. Let's put it that way. All right,
Yes.
let's do a little Briller Jeopardy tonight, and the chat board seems like everything seems to be working on my end again, so that's a good thing. Okay, so participate, please. It's about retired hurricane names, Joe. So, how many A and B lettered storms that have been retired can you name? And the chat board can certainly give some assistance to this. There are, I will help you along. There are 7 A storms and only 3 B storms.
Okay. And before we even start on this question, I'm not using this as a way to buy for time or whatever, but we must mention our dear friend, who shows every once in a while here, and we're happy he showed up tonight. Quiet John on Super Chat. He says, "Great job, guys. Keep it real and entertaining." And Quiet John, thank you so much for your most generous contribution. I don't know what we did tonight, Joe, to deserve this, but thank you very much, Quiet John.
Thank you. All right, let's see. How many can you get here? 7 A storms, Joe, and 3 B storms.
I'm trying to think. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Still battling the. Well, the one A storm that stands out immediately in my memory, and goes back. This is the 50th anniversary of this storm. Agnes. Agnes
is correct.
Which did a number, not so much on our area. I think it made landfall in Long Beach, and then moved northwestward. But it really did a number on Pennsylvania. That was a place they got blasted with tremendous amounts of rain.
Yeah,
so
I think the statewide record is like around 19 inches for 24 hours, and that still stands. I forgot where it was, but there are a lot of statewide records there in PA that date back to Hurricane Agnes. So Agnes is one of them.
There's one I remember in 1980 at the very beginning. Obviously, it would have to be the beginning if it was an A storm, but it had a very low barometric pressure and may have been like a Cat 3 or Cat 4. Allen.
Allen actually was the first Category 5 hurricane since Camille, but when it made landfall in Texas, it was, I believe, just a Category 3 and a weakening Category 3 at that. But yes, Allen is on the list as well, Allen.
Now, I don't know if this was worth retirement. It in terms of some of these super strong storms that we have seen in this part of the country, like a Donna, for example, or the Great Hurricane of 1938. I don't know whether or not this would have been worthy, except for the fact that it did affect the heavily populated southern New England area back in 1991, Bob. Which also, I think, grazed Long Island.
That is on the B list, and I see a few folks on the chat board have also mentioned Hurricane Bob. Yes, Bob is on the B list. Robert Russo getting that.
Now, how about here's one. It was the very first hurricane of the season, but it came very late in the season. But this is the Joe Chiaffiism, the buzzsaw hurricane, Andrew.
That is correct.
1992.
That is correct. Yes, 1992 Hurricane Andrew. Just had the 30th anniversary.
Right. So we had the 50th anniversary of Agnes, the 30th anniversary of Andrew. Oh, what else? Off the top of my head, those are the only ones I can think of.
Okay, so let me help you along. The first A storm to be retired was in 1957.
1957.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
1957. And named after a honeymooner.
Alice?
No, not Alice, but who played Alice?
Audrey.
Audrey.
Meadows. Audrey.
That's
Really? And that
correct.
was, wow.
Well, Audrey and Hurricane Audrey, they never they never were able to get the actual correct death toll because of the flooding was so bad, and the water tables in southeast Louisiana are such that uh, bodies are buried above ground in New Orleans. But in parts of southwest Louisiana, they were still burying people below ground. The water table came up so high that a lot of the recently departed, not because of the storm, their graves wound up coming up out of the
Actually
ground.
floated up. Oh, God.
Yes, correct. Here's one. A very small storm in 1983 that went into Houston, Texas, and rearranged the windows.
Rearrange the windows.
The big deal about this storm was the fact that it blew out windows from all the skyscrapers.
Well, did this hit Houston, Texas, for example?
Yes, hit Houston.
Okay. And we're talking about a B or an A storm?
An A storm.
A storm. Well, we had Allen and
Craig Carlberg got it right. And so did Mark DeCara.
Alicia.
Yes, Alicia was very, very small. It was a very, very small Category 3 hurricane. Gales only went out like 20 or 30 miles. But because it was so small, where the center went over, the pressure gradient was so tight that it actually blew out windows from most of the skyscrapers there.
I was going to mention another A storm, but I'm not sure if it's on the list. I just, was just groping for straws. How about Allison?
Allison, I was just going to give you the hint that the only one on this list that was not a hurricane, and that's Tropical Storm Allison in 2001 that brought flooding rains to Florida and the Southeast. And the one remaining A storm is one that you may not get. It was Hurricane Anita in 1977, which formed in the eastern Gulf of Mexico and moved straight west. And it just steadily intensified. And I think initially they had this going in. I said Allen was the first Category 5 since Camille, but Alicia may have been was upgraded, I think, to also a Category 5 when it made landfall in northeastern Mexico. Now the two remaining on the Bs, Joe, there's only three. You named Bob, but there's two B storms. One hit Texas and the other one hit New Orleans. In fact, for New Orleans, this was a generational event.
Wow. You weren't there.
I was not there. I was not part of that generation.
You're probably happy you weren't.
Yes.
Dan Rather talks about a B storm. And this may have been the one that
talks about a C storm. That was Carla in 61.
Really?
Yes.
Because I thought I was thinking, of a B storm, Betsy.
Betsy, yes, in 65. That's the one that went into Louisiana. Yes, correct, and into New Orleans.
So there's only one left?
Well, only one left, and it went into Texas in 1967.
Well, Joe, I was only 11 years old.
Okay, how can I give you this hint? She was an actress that was used to play in movies in the 30s and 40s. Was oftentimes about as old as she was. And I'm thinking of one actor in particular, Jimmy Stewart here.
Beulah Bondi?
Beulah, yes, Beulah.
Yeah, Beulah, Jimmy Stewart said that in a lot of his movies, whenever they needed somebody to play his mother, they always called Beulah Pondy.
Yep.
And I know at least two. There was, of course, she played his mother in It's a Wonderful Life, and also played his mother in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
That's correct. That is correct. All right, let's call it a night.
Beulah was also the name of the buzzer on Truth or Consequences.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
Barker would ask somebody that he'd say, "All right, here's the question," and you give the question, and he'd give exactly 1 second for the person to give the answer before Beulah. I'm sorry.
By the way, happy birthday to Bob Newhart, who just turned 93 a day or two ago.
Wow! Congratulations, Bob Newhart. Very funny, very underrated comedian. When he used to do those on the phone sketches where he'd be talking to somebody on the phone. The one about when he's trying to pitch the game of baseball, or when somebody's trying to pitch the game of baseball,
Well,
I understand.
He also very recently he was on a few episodes of The Big Bang Theory,
and he won an Emmy or Emmys for that role.
Yes, he certainly did.
Yes.
He certainly did. Johnny Quest getting all of the storms correct, by the way. Just want to point out. Johnny Quest was able to get all the storms correct. So you could put a little medal there on his rowboat there, and with all the rain that he gets up in the mountains of northwestern Virginia. And on that note, let us say good night. And Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time.
PM. Yes.
7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for all the Super Chat hits tonight. As always, greatly appreciated. Quiet John, thank you very much for the little extra Super Chat that you sent us. And Joe, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of that voice. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.